Hello! Today we're going to have a look at the F-104G Starfighter in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I will admit this is probably the only fast jet that I really like in the simulator, and you'll see why in a few minutes. We're at Edwards Air Force Base, and I thought we'd go through one of my kind of trademark first look videos where we're going to go through the very basics of operating the Starfighter and take it for a fly. So I'm not going to be following the full procedures, we're just going to do the bare minimum to get the thing up and running. So as you can see, it's amazingly modelled around the cockpit. It does look like a piece of 1960s hardware that's been well used, I think the term might be. So even if you look around behind you, it's very, very cool. Okay, so what do we do first to get this Starfighter up and running? We actually need a key combination. Press Ctrl, Shift and J and it opens up this knee board, which is not on your knee bizarrely, otherwise you'd be craning down to look at it all the time. And in here you can configure the fuel level, the tip tanks, things like that for the aircraft. We're going to leave it stock as it is for the moment and go next page, and we're going to call the EPU. When we call the EPU, we suddenly magically from nowhere get a ground power unit, or external power unit, I'm guessing they're calling it in this case, and some stairs have arrived, and the external power unit, as you will see here, has an umbilical going towards the underneath of the aircraft. So if we toggle the EPU, suddenly the airplane comes alive and it has electrical power, and we can get on with doing some things around the cockpit. So first thing we do is turn the anti-skid to on. Next we go and calibrate the altimeter, so I'm just going to press B to shortcut that instead of looking up the barometric pressure, which you could obviously adjust with the knob on the altimeter. We're going to set the airspeed marker for our rotate speed. This is just a visual reference of, we want it at 180 knots. So yes, you really do rotate at 180 knots in a Starfighter. And the reason for that, if you weren't aware, if we go and look from outside, let's look at those wings. It's slightly mad. Okay. Oh, and actually go and have a look at the pilot now. Now we're sat in there. He looks like a very cool dude. But then he would be, wouldn't you, if you've got a plane this cool? Not that I've got any favouritism going on for Starfighters here. I'm just going to press Ctrl Shift J to get rid of the knee board again while we're working on it. So we've set the airspeed marker. We need to set the gyro direction to TACAN for the gyro compass. So you set this to TACAN, and this would then use the radios to give us an accurate direction while we're flying along, which is obviously better than squinting at the binnacle compass over there. Okay, so down on the right we can go and turn on the pressure suit and turn the oxygen supply on. We can close the fresh air scoop outside, so we do that. We can set the cockpit temperature to auto, which is here. We can set the external lights to beacon on, which is the usual thing about telling the ground crew what you're about to do. So beacon lights go on, and that's kind of telling ground crew we're about to start the engines, so watch out. External lights need to go to steady and bright as well. So steady and bright. Kind of did that backwards. I misread it on the piece of paper that I'm following, so don't mind me. Okay, now we are going to start the engine. So we come back over here, and all we do to start the engine is flick the start switch over here. And we'll have a listen to this from outside because it does sound pretty awesome. So it goes through a test sequence with the nozzle. You can see the nozzle changing shape at the back of the aeroplane. And it eventually goes to idle. Okay, so if we go and sit inside, we're all looking good. So obviously the needles have stopped moving around. They would have been swishing around all over the place while the engine was spooling up. Okay, the next thing we need to do is go and set the INS, or inertial navigation system. So you will notice over here there is a series of lights, and what we have to do is put this on standby for a while, and that warms it up. You can see a heat sign there. So we'll give this a few seconds on standby. It's worth noting you have to have the engine running for that to work, because obviously you have to get the heat from somewhere. Move the align switch, this light will come on, it will start blinking when it is aligned. So give it a few seconds, usually takes about 10 seconds, there it goes. And now we can turn to navigation mode. Okay, so that's done. Essentially now we can close the canopy. So we just click on the lever there, the canopy comes down and then the lock comes across. We can close the mirrors because we're not going to be looking behind us today. We're going to be looking forwards at quite some speed. And come off the parking brake and have a look around. We're going to be going that way out of the parking area. Well, let me just check before we do anything what control settings we have in the simulator. So we've got this set to a 2 engine. It shouldn't matter then. So go back, resume. Because this has only got 1 engine, so I'll be using one of my throttle levers. Okay. The ground handling is very good, but you have to be careful because it has so much power. You can very quickly get yourself into trouble. So we're taxiing out towards the main runway at Edwards. This always gives me, it always reminds me of The Right Stuff, where Chuck Yeager went out towards the runway at Edwards at some crazy taxi speed. We're obviously taking our time. It's a gorgeous looking aeroplane, isn't it? Okay, I'm just going to press D as well to align. Yeah, because we're using the Tacan for the gyro compass, it's not going to be affected by drift in the same way that a magnetic compass would, or that a purely gyro-driven compass would. Okay, so we're coming up to the runway. There's hardly any wind today. Just give it a touch of brake. And then we have some fun. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is the F-104G. Watch what happens when I open the throttle. So we are at about 90% throttle. You can see we're coming up through 100 knots, 150 knots. There's our rotate speed right there. I've deliberately done this without flaps so you can see just how rapid this thing is. So gear is up. And we are motoring. And we haven't even opened the engine up really, and we're doing 300 knots in quite a steep climb. It's lovely and smooth and quiet inside actually. I guess the engine's quite a long way back down behind us if we skid sideways in the seat. It's very, very well modelled. Okay, let's go and build some speed, shall we? So let's open the Afterburner. Notice what happened there? This is one of the lovely things about this model, is you can overdo the engine, so watch the percentage there. I dumped the throttle there to pushed it all the way forwards and it killed itself. So you have to be very careful. There's the Afterburner. There you saw the nozzle position move, and look at the fuel flow. But then look at the speed climbing. So if I level out, so we can see vertical speed here coming down, and look at the speed, 450 knots. .500 knots. We're about 10,000 feet already. So let's look out of the over at Edwards over there. Obviously we can do some crazy things in this aeroplane. So we'll go straight and level and get some speed up. So we're coming up to 550 knots indicated, about Mach 0.9-ish. Okay. It's just quite amusing to watch the clouds disappear behind you. Although the clouds are quite a long way out, so we might not see it very clearly today. But we are going upstairs at a frightening rate. That's 20,000 feet. $26,000 feet. 27,000 feet just coming up. So yeah, the Starfighter, this is what it was designed to do. To climb into the sky and fire a missile basically, and then go home again. Not get involved in any dramatic shenanigans with enemy planes. It would dash in, fire, dash out again. Okay, so let's turn the loud pedal down a bit. And have a look at descending back down. We'll have a look outside while we're doing this. It is gorgeous though, isn't it? They've really modelled it well. I ought to keep an eye on the... Notice we have vortices that are forming. And various heat mechanisms around the aircraft that are venting air. It's very clever. It has this characteristic howl if we rev the engine up. We haven't really opened it yet either. Ready? There we go, we have Afterburner. So I'm going to loop round. We'll loop round and we'll come back in and land. So we'll come back off the speed a bit. We're doing nearly 600 knots. You don't need to worry about slowing down in the Starfighter either. It's very, very good at slowing down, quite often when you don't want it to. As soon as we came off the throttle, we're down to 250 knots nearly, look, just doing the turn. It really doesn't like manoeuvring at all. It likes going in a straight line incredibly quickly. Right, so we're going to open the throttle. Gear down. What speed are we doing? Oh, we can't put the gear down yet. So all we need to do is cut the throttle. It has got air brakes, and they are very, very effective. You can see the speed falling off there, like falling off a cliff. Okay, gear down, flaps down. Let's just sit straight in the cockpit so we can see what we're doing. Yeah, it has a habit of dropping a wing if you get below about 170 knots. So we're not going to get below 170 knots. We're at 180 at the moment, and I'm keeping an eye on sink rate, which is enormous now. So I'm opening the throttle as we go. I'm going to sit up so we've got a view over the nose. And we're going to come in and put this thing back down on the ground. It is like kind of balancing a broomstick, bringing it into land. You're kind of sitting on the engine and these tiny little stubby wings with full flaps. They are ever so slightly ineffective, and it tends to try and roll away from you all the time. So we'll sit back down, and we're down. So just put the wheel brakes on. And taxi off the runway. I don't normally like military planes in Flight Simulator, but the Starfighter is a bit of an exception because I think it's wonderful. Not only does it look real, something I haven't touched on at all, the radar has an external application you can run, so it actually works. So you can see other aircraft on the radar screen and obviously play games with intercepting them. Obviously none of the weapons work. If you buy it from the developer though, instead of from the marketplace, you can actually have external stores, weapons on the aircraft. If you buy it from the marketplace, you won't have any weapons because that's a condition of aircraft in the marketplace. Okay, I'll just go and park up somewhere. Should we go over where the baggage is? Because of course all Starfighter pilots need a baggage truck. So, hopefully you enjoyed that. That's the Starfighter. It's pretty awesome, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Maybe we'll leave it with a look at it from the side profile, which is kind of an iconic photo, isn't it? Especially with it being out here on the stand at Edwards. It's a stunning looking aeroplane. Okay, I'll see you all again soon.